Okay, thanks indeed for staying with us here. The program is still this morning on ITV. Let's join another very special, very friendly lawyer who have been a very regular face in the studio here, Barrister Stanley Dien, as we look at the issue of the Endsars protest and matters arising from the protest of Saturday. So much talk here, but many persons are talking about that protest here. The police are saying their own part that they use minimal force, while some, I think Mr. Macaroni, to be precise, is saying that as far as he's concerned, that they all went out in fear, whatever, talk here and there. Okay, let's join Barrister Stanley Dien, who is already on the line this morning. Wonderful morning, Barrister.
Well, good morning, my dear. Good morning, Nigerians.
Yeah, very, very, very wonderful morning here. Barrister Stanley Dien, let's quickly look at your view of the aborted Endsars protest that happened at the weekend here. There are several talks about allegation of human rights violation. The police are debunking that minimal force was used, that they allowed journalists to cover the event, and that as far as they are concerned, why that protest was not allowed to hold, but the last time it held, the country went on flames.
Yeah, well, to me, it's part of democracy anyway. And fundamentally, our constitution, provide or gives citizens the right to protest amongst other regimes of rights, the right to freedom of movement and freedom of association, and other rights anyway. So to that extent, Nigerians have a fundamental right is to express themselves in one way or the other, which includes the right to protest. Okay. And in fact, it is part of the duty of the government in such protests, to provide security, to the protesters. However, that right does not operate without certain limitations. Such rights are to be expressed in tandem with certainly, for example, where such rights will not violate the security and the national the security of the country, and of course ensure that it will not cause other coercion and all of that. Other problems in the larger society that undermine the peace, progress, and of course security of the country. It's unfortunate anyway. To me, I believe very, very well that there was nothing wrong for the protesters to have protested and all of that. But however, we are seeing the condition we find ourselves, especially from the last protest. You understand? It was just unfortunate. The issue of the alleged massacre in Lekki, which is still under investigation as a matter of fact. And I'm aware, I heard that there was an order, whether by the very body and were caught or thereabout, asking that the operators of the Lekki toll gate itself should go back there. And of course, the people felt disappointed or incensed that going back to where, such an alleged massacre was committed, you understand, was a kind of an assault on the intelligence or collective intelligence of the people. Hence, they mobilized for the protest. At the same time, government on the other way around, they felt very well that, no one can even imagine whether this peace or this protest is going to be as peaceful, you understand, as it were, or it's going to happen the same way the last one happened, where, the massive destruction of, the properties, both private and public properties, which we are yet to recover from. To me, my appeal is that while the citizens have the right to express themselves, I also want to appeal to the police. You understand? We even watched some of the clips anyway, where people were just manned up together, and taking the way of God. What we should even say, because one of the arguments on the side of the government is the fact that, look, you cannot or you should not embark on this protest. Not only because the last exercise ended in a serious destruction of lives and property. You understand? Amongst even that of those of the protesters and even the police themselves and other innocent citizens of the country. But also for the fact that there is COVID-19. But my worry has always been also that while arresting people who seem to undermine government directive not to protest, you understand? And these persons are carted away in breach of COVID-19. From what we saw, it means also that government should also be very mindful, you understand, in trying to exert its own right in protecting others. You understand? But one thing I must emphasize is this, speaking as a lawyer here, that there is a kind of, let's say, conflicts of rights or conflicts of rights in the sense that while the protesters have the right to protest and government duty bound to protect them so long as it is peaceful, there are the others who also have the right. I'm talking specifically about the toll gate issue. You understand?
Have the right to use the roads.
Other Nigerians have the right to use that toll gate, whether as a means of movement from one place to the other. Now, if they elect not to embark on such a protest, you know what I'm saying, and you protest and block a public place, you have the right to protest, you understand? But another person also has his own right, you understand? Not only not to protest, but also to be allowed, free access to his business places and all of that. And that is where my concern lies here. Which I think it should not be, the argument should not be that, look, the right of the protesters overrides the right of others not to protest or...
But that is the feeling in some parts of the human rights and activist domain.
Yeah, that's I share that.
That once you come out to protest, no matter what you do to other persons, you are right.
I think that is not totally correct. That is not totally correct. And that's why we have to be mindful. You understand? Like I said, I'm a product of protest. I've taken part and I've organized and all of that. You understand? And of course, these protests, some of them are quite risky and they are to promote the general well-being of the people. But I'm also aware also, you understand, that in doing this, of course, certain interests used to also come to play. But to me also, we should not, because we have these rights, as Nigerians concerned with the well-being and welfare, promotion of the well-being of the people, always think that as long as the strict interpretation of the fundamental rights are concerned, that such right to protest overrides, you understand, the right of an individual person to use roads, public places, and all of that. That's the truth. Because if you go to court, you understand, and maybe somebody was using a road and protesters were protesting, and that person perhaps was suffering from a health challenge, and because of the restriction or delay, that person died, and the family members go to court. I do not think that a judge or competent jurisdiction will sit down and simply say, well, because you were protesting, that you are right to block the road, to protest to the extent of blocking the road, supersede the right of the other person. You will have freedom of movement to enable him to access medical service. I do not think so. Do you understand? I think, therefore, it means that in our enjoyment of our right, in exercising our right, it should also have that intelligence to appreciate the rights of others, so that in exercising ours, we should not unduly undermine the free exercise of the rights of others. Fundamental rights are generation of rights, you understand, which every citizen must. And that is why, in this circumstance here, even though sometimes we may not be very, very comfortable with the reasons for government to stop such protests, do you understand? Government can comfortably, come under the fact that, look, because the last exercise led to destruction of lives and property, the last exercise prevented free flow of movement and activities to the extent of depriving other citizens their freedom to go to their businesses. We will rise, because government has a right to protect the rights of other citizens also. Do you understand? Government can come under that to say, look, we want to protect the freedom of others also by ensuring that you don't undermine them. And honestly, if you go to court, you understand, it will be a very thin line as to determine whether government was just unfair in acting that way, or whether government was, the people, you understand, rights were violated, the protesters' rights were violated to the extent that they went to block a public place, they expressing their grievances, which is to the benefit of the community, of the society at large, while others were being prevented from going to their place of business. I think that is a challenge for those who are lawyers and even Nigerians
now
to begin to challenge most of these things, to be tested in court. What do I mean by that? We want to have an opportunity to say, well, between the right of a citizen or group of citizens to protest in exercise of their fundamental right in the Constitution, you understand, Chapter 4, and the rights of other citizens not only to protest, but to also have freedom of movement, you understand? Not in a freedom such that their access or use of public utilities will not be prevented by the protesters. Where those two rights conflict, do you understand? Which one supersedes? We want to have our courts, make pronouncements so that way will be guided. So if you ask me, you understand, there is no single right that is so absolute, you understand, that at every point in time it will supersede the rights of others. Even, that of government. Government is about its own role. But let me even, if you allow me to even
go ahead.
Stretch the issue here. Look, all the protests surrounding the Lekki toll gates, the Endsars protests, are all expression of the fact that there are fundamentally There are certain things that are fundamentally wrong in our system. They are expressions of the frustrations of Nigerians, the frustration of years of decades of misgovernance.
But is that why they will burn all their own transport buses?
No, that was stupidity on the side of the people. I mean, I've always found, I had the knowledge. Look, if you want to exercise your freedom to protest, do you understand? How whatever the grievance may be, if you destroy public property, especially the few ones, let me use that word, the few ones that have been made available for you to use, whether hospitals, transport, buses meant for you to use and all of that, you are being stupid because at the end of the day, not only are you depriving yourself, you understand, the opportunity of using that as few as it may be, but also you are giving even the politicians opportunity to even steal from you. I use the word with due respect to those in government. How do I mean by that? Because by the time we are awarding contracts, you understand, to repair these buses or fix them, reduce the building you have destroyed, there are likelihood of the increment in inflation of the contract. So at the end of the day, you merely provided them opportunity, not only to take more from you, you understand, where you even need more. I think we must be very wise, sincerely speaking. We shouldn't allow emotions, we shouldn't allow frustrations to make us act with some irresponsibility. I feel a sense of agony, when I watch across this day, the number of carnage destruction. I'm from Cross River State. I saw what happened in my state capital, Calabar. I must tell you, in the next 50 years, I don't think we're going to recover those things. You understand? And some of these protesters were actually insane. How would you go to, an hospital where infectious disease hospital, where people suffer from tuberculosis? You understand? House, and you went to even steal the beddings there for God's sake, and you call that poverty? I think it has a lot to do with it. We have to talk to ourselves. It was the privilege of the highest order. So I think it is not the law, it shouldn't be the law, that because we want to express ourselves, government has failed in one way or the other, we want to destroy, even we should destroy, go and destroy public utilities that are for our good. I think, to me, it is counterproductive. I do not support that.
Okay, now going forward, now let's look at the issue of the police releasing them in the evening. Some said, look, it's nice. Some say it's a tactics of keeping and warning. Some said, no, the police ought to have charged them to court.
Well, I think every of such opinion, I'll have some, it's plausible. Every of such opinion is plausible to some extent. If you release them, the way they release them, as soon as, the evening there, to me, it was also nice. Nice in the sense that, well, the issue of arresting someone and detaining the person beyond 24 or 48 hours, the case may be, was fulfilled. And again, in a time like this, we don't have COVID-19 challenges and all of that. And of course, it wouldn't be to the interest of the government itself if you keep people like the way they were carted away, the way they did, and of course, the proximity of the people and all of that, no social distancing and all of that, And so releasing them immediately later in the evening, I think to me was a good thing. And again, if you arrest people in such a massive manner, you're also going to have a challenge, in our way of this person, whether it be police or whatever, So I think it was also a tactic of the central government to play it safe by ensuring that they will equally release. On the other way around, of course, if you believe these persons have committed a wrong by undermining government order and all of that, of course, the law expects to charge them to court. You understand? However, that itself also has economic challenge because if you go to court, you're going to spend money. The police, they will go there, and the court officials are going to spend their time to try this matter. Good as it may be in promoting our case law and of course our jurisprudence and all of that, you're going to spend money. Why am I saying this? We are in a very, very economically challenging time, and therefore every resources must be wisely and judiciously, you understand, used. And so if you want to now go and embark on massive trial of these persons in court and all of that, prosecution of the persons in court, that has economic implication much as it has its own, jurisprudential importance. So to me, releasing them immediately was a good one. You know, but I want to see how we as the government and the people should begin to see what our responsibilities are in moving forward. For the government, the expression of the protest by the people, it is an increasing message that, look, all has not been well with us. Things have not been easy. But we have tolerated the misgovernance over the years so much. It is not about the APC. Some have the notion that it's all about APC or Buhari is incompetent. That is a fallacious statement. The truth has been that there have been decades of misgovernance. In other words, governance not meeting the needs of the people in an inclusively incremental manner. And now it has not got to a point that it is becoming a catastrophic thing. Why? Because in the last 5 years or thereabout, our major source of revenue, the crude oil, which we have rapaciously and foolishly depended on, even when God has endowed of other resources, the oil price crashed from what used to be above $100 per barrel on the average to about 30 and thereabout dollars per barrel. Meaning that the population of Nigerians, of course, as at 2015, we were about 168 to 175 billion people in Nigeria. Today we are about 200 and something. Now, as at that 2015, before the 214 or thereabout, it was selling about $100 per barrel. Now it is selling far, far below, meaning that the extra population, about 30 million thereabout, who have been given birth to in Nigeria, are meeting Nigeria that from a high level of financial, illiquidity. Do you understand? It means naturally going to be challenges. It's not about Buhari's incompetence as popular say. No. It means we are going to have challenges to survive. As if that was not enough. Who were barely trying to recover from the recession that was caused by that short fall in oil revenue. And the next thing we found was the COVID-19. COVID-19 has been a global humbler, the most powerful nation on earth in terms of the human capacity, institutional, efficiency, and they just named the United States of America. It's having currently more than 450,000 casualty rate in death and more than 24 million of infection rate. What does that mean? The economy has virtually crippled. As I speak to you, America is owing about $26.7 trillion. And America, a growth to GDP ratio is more than 144%. Do you understand? So it tells you technical America is living in a borrowed land. It's not been easy. Britain is looking for about 400 billion pounds to reject its economy, to rescue its economy. How much more a very partial nation like Nigeria, where we have been highly consumptive in the sense that the bulk of our economic activity have been consumptive and not productive. So you can imagine that it is even the grace of God that is preserving us. So moving forward, Nigerians who are protesting must understand that the times are challenging. To me, instead of us to burn so much energy and most of these protests, why don't we think of how we can impact, if not possible, take over the next leadership that 2023 offers? We have been talking about the issue of constitutional amendment, restructuring, and all of those things. The truth is that if you don't position yourself or don't occupy those critical positions, you won't be able to be in a place to impact. Therefore, it to me more important that the Endsars protesters and other group of Nigerians who are disappointed what have been going through and who have gone through in Nigeria over a decade should begin to organize. We can adopt an existing political party or parties or form new ones and begin to use this opportunity to network, go to the nooks and crannies, form workshops, symposia, seminars, talk to ourselves, because we must understand the issues. It's not about speaking Queen's English, for God's sake. Government does not operate like miracle. Neither does it operate like a military thing or in a mechanistic manner. No. It's a systemic thing. The players must understand it. So, beyond talking on social media and protesting, let us begin to have those conversations. Talk shops, you understand? Go visit cities, states, communities. Begin to do some community services. And also bring some, bring some t-shirts and other caps. Where we have this person. If we can use this one to begin to have a nationwide rainbow coalition of oppressed people, coalition of Nigerians who are victims of misgovernance, coalition of people who are united in giving birth to a virile Nigeria. Who tells you that by 2022, you understand, we will not be in a position not only to have candidates that can and should contest elected posts from the councillorship to the presidency, so that at the end of the 2023 election, whether you like it, what I'm saying is having a question of going to contest in different political platform. No, you see what happened in last election. The young presidential candidate, a lot of us spoke with cerebral fecundity. Look at the intelligence that they exhibited. But see, politics does not begin and end in speaking Queen's English on social media and all of that. It's much more than that. If that come together to get one candidate, rather than to support, mobilize, they would have made more impact than we did. So, here's an opportunity to do what? Remedy the very, very fundamental mistake we made in 2019. But unfortunately, we are not doing that. People are just talking on social media. I mean, instead of getting organizing ourselves. Now, when you even say that there's leadership failure, how have you positioned yourself to be the better alternative when you cannot even show a good example in organizing yourself as like minds? I'm talking to all of us now, the intellectual community. You know, over time we're talking about there have been expression. Oh, there's going to be a formation. Oh, the lack of party told me about Fem Falana and all of that. But we're going to be the third force and all these, attempts. Immediately you don't hear the whole celebration of they fizzle out. The question is this: can we rightly say that we have in us that alternative, better, more efficient leadership capacity when we have not successfully organized ourselves into a formidable force, alternative force that will give birth to a new Nigeria? Now, if we cannot do so, what do we think we will get into government? We are going to offer better alternative? I think no. Honestly speaking, to me, therefore, it makes more sense. Why do I say this? If we continue the way we do, because part of these protests and all these ones, they have more of, ethno-religious bigotries, sentiments, than people who are unbiased, who are united, who have a vision of a Nigeria that we should be. You understand? So some of us hide under the misgovernance and the poverty and all that to promote ethno-religious sentiment, which will not take it anywhere. What you are saying is, if we don't organize ourselves well and there is anarchy in the land, like it is looming now, we are all going to be losers. And therefore, while we are truly frustrated by the misgovernance over the years till now, you understand, we should be able to be wise to ensure that we save modern Nigeria by organizing ourselves in such responsible manner towards forming government. We may not win the presidency in 2023, but if we organize ourselves in a very responsible, effective way,
okay, Ambassador, I think I just want to cause, our time is flying, but I want to ask you a question here. Some persons actually commended the police for allowing journalists to cover every single thing they want to cover. Be everywhere, put camera on every single operation, every single arrest. Journalists followed through, even to the sad one of when they were pushing their Black Maria truck to start.
Well, I think that's commendable. I mean, the media itself is part of the democracy itself. There are major stakeholders in the democratic experience, and therefore, if, as reported, I didn't follow very well. If from what you see here, the media persons were allowed. They were allowed
complete access to that place and allowed to cover every single thing.
I want the government itself to step up effort. I mean, every government is. Government at every level, local government, state government, federal government, we should up our game. Sincerely speaking, there are problems. You understand? While here, protesters should not abuse the law and should not undermine. We should humble them by greater performance, by more sincerity. I'm talking not only even politicians, our religious leaders. We have churches, mosques, and all of that. Some of us are building cathedrals, massive cathedrals. When our church members cannot afford a square meal, don't have good jobs, who tells you that a church should not engage in ventures, including agriculture? A lot of other trade, employ its members. You understand? Who tells you that? As long as I'm concerned, it's not a question of government failure. It's a collective failure by all of us. So sometimes you sit down, you see some of the religious leaders just merely transfer the blame on the politicians. The politicians are members of the churches and the mosque. What do they hear in the church?
Okay, Ambassador, hello?
Yes.
I think I'll thank you. Our time is up now. We want to do paper review.
Sorry, man.
Thank you, Barrister Den. If we leave you keep on analyzing Nigeria's problem with so much. Thank you, Barrister Den. Do have a lovely and a wonderful post-Valentine week.
And you too, bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, Barrister Stanley Den here. If you leave Barrister Stanley Den, he will go on and on with the analysis here. But I think it's time for us to take a break now. When we come back from the break, Charity and I will be looking at the papers, after which we'll be running off the program for this morning.